In a small quiet town stood an old textile mill that had been closed for many years. The building was huge, with tall chimneys and broken windows. Dust covered every corner, and the sound of wind passing through the cracks made it feel alive. Locals believed the place was haunted. Many strange stories were told about it: missing workers, fire, and the cries that people claimed to hear at night. No one dared to go near it after sunset. Children were warned to stay away. The elders said the ghosts of the dead workers still worked inside the mill, sewing clothes that no one would ever wear. Every night, people who lived nearby heard the faint sound of machines turning, even though there was no electricity inside. One day, a young businessman named Cody came to town. He wanted to bring life back to the area by reopening the mill. He said it would give jobs to everyone and make the town rich again. People tried to stop him. They told him about the curse, but Cody didn't believe in ghosts. He said, "It's just an old building with stories." Cody started cleaning the place with a small team. On the first evening, he walked through the long dark hallways, shining his flashlight on old machines covered in cobwebs. Everything was silent until suddenly, one of the sewing machines started running by itself. The sound was sharp and cold. Cody froze. Then he noticed something strange. The threads on the machine were forming a red scarf, just like the one from an old picture hanging on the wall. When he looked closely, he saw a woman's shadow in the reflection of the window. And from that moment, Cody knew the stories were true. The ghosts of the textile mill were still there, waiting for someone to return. Cody didn't let fear stop him. Even after hearing the stories and seeing strange things on the first night, he told himself it was just his imagination. He believed in hard work, not in ghosts. The next morning, he gathered the workers and told them they would finish cleaning and repairing the mill. "Don't be scared," Cody said with a smile. "Old buildings make strange sounds. That doesn't mean it's haunted." But deep inside, he was still thinking about the sewing machine that had started by itself. The workers were nervous. They whispered about the noises they had heard last night. One man even said he saw a woman in an old factory uniform walking in the hallway. Cody laughed and said maybe it was the wind or shadows. Still, he decided to check every room by himself to be sure. As he moved through the long corridors, he found old photographs of workers hanging on the walls. In one picture, he noticed a young girl wearing a red scarf, smiling softly. Her eyes seemed to follow him wherever he went. Cody felt cold air on his neck but ignored it. At night, while everyone else had gone home, Cody stayed behind to look at the power system. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker. The machine started moving again. The sound of spinning wheels and sewing needles filled the air. The air grew colder and heavier. Cody shouted, "Who's there?" But no one answered. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. The same red scarf girl from the photo, standing near the stairs, her face pale and sad. Before he could move, she disappeared. The only thing left behind was the faint smell of smoke and a single red thread on the floor. That night, Cody realized something dark was hidden in the mill, and it wasn't just old memories. After the strange events, Cody tried to act normal, but deep down, fear was growing inside him. He wanted to prove to everyone that ghosts didn't exist. So he decided to spend one full night alone inside the textile mill. He thought that if he stayed there and nothing happened, the workers would stop being afraid and return to work. He brought a small flashlight, some food, and his phone. The mill was silent when the sun went down. The wind whistled through broken windows, and the wooden floors creaked under his feet. Cody tried to stay calm. He walked through the large, empty hall, checking each machine. At around midnight, strange sounds started again. The sewing machines began to click and hum softly, one after another, as if invisible hands were working on them. The lights above flickered, and the air turned icy cold. Cody called out, "Who's there?" His voice echoed through the empty building. He followed the sound to the old manager's office. Inside, he saw the same old photograph again, the workers lined up, smiling. But now, something was different. The girl in the red scarf was missing from the picture. Cody stared in shock. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow and heavy. He turned around quickly, but no one was there. Then a faint voice whispered, "Help us." Cody's flashlight flickered and went out for a few seconds. When it came back on, he saw handprints on the dusty glass door, fresh ones. His heart raced. He ran out of the office, but the main door wouldn't open. It was locked from the outside. The machines kept running. Shadows moved across the walls. And through the dark, he saw her, the girl in the red scarf, standing at the end of the hallway, her pale face glowing in the dim light. Cody froze. The ghosts of the textile mill were awake again. After that terrifying night, Cody could hardly sleep. His mind kept replaying the image of the girl in the red scarf and the sound of the whisper that said, "Help us." The next morning, he told the workers to take a few days off while he tried to understand what was happening. Cody walked through the mill again in daylight. Everything looked normal, silent, and empty. The machines were still, and the sun shone through the dusty windows. But the air felt heavy, as if the building was breathing. He turned on his phone recorder to capture any strange sound. As he stood near the center of the hall, he heard something faint. At first, it sounded like the wind. Then he realized it was whispering. The voices were soft, overlapping each other, coming from inside the walls. Cody froze. He moved closer and placed his ear against the wall. The whisper became clearer. "We never left." Cody quickly stepped back, his heart pounding. He checked the recordings on his phone, and the whispers were there, real and loud. It wasn't just in his mind. Later that evening, he sat in the office trying to find answers. He searched through old papers, reports, and letters left behind by the previous owner. One letter caught his attention. It mentioned a fire in the basement that killed several workers, but the details were hidden. The company had covered it up. Just then, the lights flickered again. The floorboards creaked. Cody heard footsteps above him, even though no one was upstairs. Then, the whispers returned, louder this time, calling his name, Cody. Cody. The sound surrounded him from every direction. The windows rattled, and dust fell from the ceiling. Cody shouted, "What do you want from me?" And a soft voice answered from the darkness, "Remember us." That was the moment Cody realized the spirits were not just haunting the place, they were trying to tell him their story. Cody couldn't stop thinking about the whispers and the strange voice that called his name. He felt there was something hidden inside the mill, something that wanted to be found. So the next morning, he started exploring again, this time going deeper into the parts of the building he hadn't checked before. He found old boxes full of worker ID cards, dusty uniforms, and faded photographs. One photo caught his eye. It showed a young girl wearing a bright red scarf. Her smile was gentle, but her eyes looked sad. On the back of the picture, a name was written in pencil, Lydia. Cody felt a chill down his spine. She was the same girl he had seen in the hallway that night. He decided to find out who Lydia was and what had happened to her. Later that evening, Cody stayed in the office to study old factory records. The air was cold and still. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The photograph on the table moved slightly, as if someone had touched it. Then, from the reflection of the glass window, Cody saw her, Lydia, standing behind him, wearing the same red scarf. Her face was pale, her eyes full of tears. She didn't look evil, just lost. Cody turned around slowly, but she was gone. Only the smell of smoke and a single red thread were left behind. When he looked back at the photo, he noticed something new, a burn mark on the corner that wasn't there before. It looked like fire had touched it. Cody realized Lydia's spirit was connected to that fire mentioned in the old letter. That night, as Cody left the mill, he heard her voice whisper softly, "Find the truth." He knew then that Lydia was trying to lead him somewhere, to the dark secret hidden beneath the mill. The next morning, Cody arrived early at the mill, determined to follow the clues Lydia had given him. He believed the truth was somewhere deep inside the building, maybe in a place no one had seen for years. He searched every corner, every storage room, and every locked cabinet. Behind a wall of broken shelves, Cody noticed something strange, a metal door covered in dust and spider webs. It looked old and rusted shut. There was no handle, only deep scratches around the edges, as if someone had tried to get out. Using a metal rod, Cody forced the door open. A cold wind rushed out, carrying a smell of burnt fabric and ashes. A narrow staircase led downward into complete darkness. Cody turned on his flashlight and carefully walked down. The deeper he went, the colder it became. At the bottom, he found a huge basement filled with old sewing machines. They were lined up neatly, as if the workers had just left. But something was wrong. Some machines were still warm to the touch. Threads hung from the needles, and the floor was covered with pieces of burnt cloth. In the corner, Cody saw old lockers melted by fire. On one of them, a nameplate still read Lydia. His heart sank. He finally understood. This was where the fire had happened. Suddenly, the lights on his flashlight began to flicker. The sound of sewing machines filled the room, though none of them were plugged in. Shadows moved between the machines, figures of women working silently. Cody whispered, "Lydia, is that you?" A voice replied softly, "They left us here." Then the temperature dropped even lower. The basement door slammed shut behind him. Cody realized he wasn't alone. The ghosts of the textile mill were still trapped here, still waiting to be freed. Cody barely slept that night. The memory of the basement haunted him, the burnt smell, the moving shadows, the whispers of lost souls. He knew the fire was no accident. The ghosts wanted him to find the truth that had been hidden for decades. The next morning, he went to the town library and looked through old newspapers and reports. After hours of searching, he found an article from 20 years ago. It said a small fire had broken out in the textile mill, but no one was hurt. The story was short and suspicious. Cody then met Mr. Dawson, an old man who had worked at the mill long ago. When Cody mentioned the fire, the old man's hands started shaking. "That was no small fire," he said in a low voice. "They lied." Mr. Dawson explained everything. On a stormy night, sparks from a broken wire started a fire in the basement while dozens of women were working there. The manager locked the basement door to stop the flames from spreading, trapping all the workers inside, including a girl named Lydia. None of them survived. The company covered it up to save their reputation. They cleaned the building, painted the walls, and pretended nothing had happened. But the souls of those poor women never found peace. Cody felt sick to his stomach. The whispers, the sewing machines, the red scarf, it all made sense now. Lydia wasn't trying to scare him. She wanted him to uncover the truth and tell the world what really happened. That night, Cody returned to the mill with candles and flowers. He placed them in the basement where the women had died. "I know what they did to you," he whispered. "I will make sure people remember." But as the candles flickered, the machines started again, louder than ever. The air filled with smoke and the sound of crying voices. And then Lydia appeared once more, her red scarf glowing in the darkness. Cody knew he couldn't run anymore. The ghosts were everywhere, in the whispers, in the wind, and in his dreams. He had learned the truth about the fire and the innocent workers who died. Now he wanted to give them peace. That night, he returned to the mill one last time. He carried candles, flowers, and a small wooden cross. The town was silent and dark. When Cody entered the mill, the air felt heavy, almost alive. The machine stood still, but he could feel eyes watching him from the shadows. Cody walked down to the basement where the tragedy had happened. He placed the candles in a circle and lit them one by one. "I know your pain," he whispered. "You don't need to stay here anymore." For a moment, Everything was silent. Then, a cold breeze blew through the room, and all the candles flickered. The sewing machine started running again, faster and faster, as if hundreds of invisible hands were working. The voices of the women filled the air, crying, whispering, and calling for help. Cody shouted, "You are free now. You can rest." But the spirits didn't stop. The sound became deafening. Out of the darkness, Lydia appeared, her red scarf glowing like fire. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered, "They never listened. Now you will." Suddenly, threads shot out from the sewing machines and wrapped around Cody's arms and legs. He struggled, but they pulled him toward the center of the basement. The flames from the candles turned blue, lighting up the room full of ghostly workers staring at him. Lydia reached out her hand toward him, her face filled with sorrow. "Stay with us," she said softly. The lights exploded, and everything went silent. That was the last night anyone ever saw Cody Harris alive. The next morning, the town woke up to silence. The sky was gray, and smoke seemed to rise faintly from the direction of the old textile mill. When the townspeople arrived, the factory doors were wide open, swinging slowly in the wind. Cody's car was still parked outside, but Cody himself was gone. Inside, the mill was strangely clean. The machines stood neatly in a line, threads perfectly arranged, as if someone had been working all night. On one of the tables, a single red scarf was folded neatly, the same one Cody had seen in Lydia's photograph. Next to it lay his phone, still recording. When the police played the recording, they heard Cody's voice saying, "You can rest now," followed by the sound of sewing machines, crying voices, and then silence. The investigators searched every corner, including the basement, but they found no sign of Cody. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. After that night, no one dared to enter the textile mill again. The building was locked and fenced off, but people who lived nearby said they could still hear the sound of machines running late at night. Some claimed they saw faint lights glowing from the windows and shadows of workers moving inside. A few brave souls who went close swore they saw a man working among the ghosts, his figure tall, his movement slow, and around his neck hung a red thread. They said it was Cody, now trapped forever inside the factory he tried to save. The old textile mill still stands at the edge of town, silent during the day but alive at night. The people call it the mill that never sleeps. And if you listen closely when the wind is right, you can still hear the echo of the sewing machines and the whispers of those who never left. And that was the chilling story of the ghosts of the textile mill. Some places never forget the pain that happened inside them. The walls remember, the air remembers, and sometimes the souls trapped within never leave. If you ever pass by an old, silent building at night and hear the soft hum of machines or whispers from behind the walls, maybe, just maybe, it's not the wind, it's the past calling out for justice. Do you believe the spirits of those who suffered can still be trapped in the places they died? Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss the next true horror story. And remember, some factories shut down forever, but their ghosts keep working.